Ben Torres stood at the viewing window of the transport ship, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. The celestial court of the Andorian Empire stretched across the void like a golden flower made of metal and light. Each petal was a different district, connected by bridges that sparkled with energy. Ben had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. "First time seeing the court?" asked Captain Mills, joining Ben at the window. "Yes," Ben replied, adjusting his diplomatic uniform. "Hard to believe Earth managed to get an invitation." Captain Mills nodded. "The Andorians don't usually bother with new species. You must have impressed them during the first contact meetings." Ben remembered those meetings well. While other human diplomats focused on military strength and technological advances, Ben had asked about Andorian art and culture. The alien ambassador seemed surprised that a human cared about such things. "Remember," Captain Mills continued, "you're not just representing yourself, you're representing all of humanity. The trade agreements we need could change everything for Earth." "I understand," Ben said, though his stomach felt tight with nerves. The docking process took 2 hours. When Ben finally stepped off the transport, he found himself in a vast hall with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Hundreds of different alien species moved through the space, some walking, some floating, some moving in ways Ben couldn't even describe. "Ambassador Torres?" A voice spoke behind him. Ben turned to see a tall alien with pale blue skin and 4 arms. The creature wore robes that seemed to shift color as it moved. "I am Guide Zeph," the alien said in perfect English. "I will show you to your quarters and explain the customs of the court." As they walked through the station, Zeph pointed out important locations. The Great Hall where formal ceremonies took place. The Trade Center where deals between species were made. The gardens where diplomats could walk and think in peace. "The Andorian royal family lives in the central tower," Zeph explained as they passed a bridge leading to a tall spire that glowed with soft light. "Princess Nova sometimes walks in the public areas, but she rarely speaks to foreign diplomats." "Why not?" Ben asked. Zeph paused. "The princess has certain abilities that make most species uncomfortable. She can read thoughts and emotions. Many find this invasive." Ben's quarters were simple but comfortable. A bed, a desk, a small kitchen, and a window that looked out at the stars. Zeph left him with a schedule of meetings and a guide to Andorian customs. The first week passed in a blur of formal meetings. Ben met with trade officials, cultural ministers, and security advisors. The talks went well, but progress was slow. The Andorians were careful people who considered every decision for days before acting. On his 8th day at the court, Ben decided to explore the gardens. He needed fresh air and space to think. The gardens were amazing. Plants from dozens of worlds grew together in perfect harmony. Some trees had silver leaves that rang like bells in the breeze. Flowers changed color as Ben walked past them. A stream ran through the center, its water glowing with soft blue light. Ben found a bench near a pond filled with fish that looked like swimming jewels. He sat down and pulled out his notebook to review his meeting notes. The sound of footsteps on the path made him look up. A young woman was walking toward him, and Ben's breath caught in his throat. She was clearly Andorian. Her skin had the typical crystal-like quality that reflected light in beautiful patterns. But her skin wasn't the usual pale blue of other Andorians. Instead, it shifted through different colors like an oil slick, changing from deep purple to soft green to warm gold as she moved. She wore simple robes in white and silver, and her long hair was the color of starlight. When she noticed Ben watching her, she slowed her steps. "I apologize," she said, her voice musical. "I did not know anyone was here. I can leave if you prefer privacy." "No, please," Ben said, standing up quickly. "The gardens are for everyone. I'm Ben Torres from Earth." The woman's skin shifted to a surprised shade of bright silver. "You are the human diplomat. I have heard about your meetings with the council." "All good things, I hope," Ben said with a smile. The woman laughed, and the sound reminded Ben of wind chimes. "Mostly good. You have surprised them with your questions about our art and literature. Most species only care about our technology and military strength. I find culture more interesting than weapons," Ben said. "Art tells you who people really are, not just what they can build." The woman's skin warmed to a golden color. "That is a wise observation. May I sit with you?" "Of course," Ben said, moving over on the bench. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the jewelfish swim in the pond. "I should introduce myself properly," the woman said. I am Nova, Ben nodded. Nice to meet you, Nova. Do you work at the court? Nova's skin flickered with what looked like amusement. You could say that. I live here. Over the next hour, they talked about many things. Nova asked about Earth, its oceans, its weather, its animals. Ben told her about rain and snow, about cats and dogs, about how humans had learned to fly by watching birds. Your species seems very determined, Nova said. The reports say humans never give up even when facing impossible odds. We're stubborn, Ben agreed. Sometimes it gets us in trouble, but sometimes it helps us solve problems that seem unsolvable. Nova's skin shifted to a thoughtful shade of deep blue. The Council finds this trait both admirable and concerning. They worry that humans might be too aggressive for peaceful trade relationships. We can be peaceful, Ben said. But we don't like being told something is impossible when we haven't tried everything yet. What if you knew something truly was impossible? Nova asked. What if the laws of physics, biology, and society all said it could not be done? Ben considered this. I guess I'd want to understand why it was impossible. Maybe there would be a way to change the laws or find an exception or discover that we were wrong about what was impossible in the first place. Nova's skin brightened to a warm amber. You sound like my old teacher. She always said that impossible was just another word for no one has figured it out yet. They met again the next day, and the day after that. Ben found excuses to visit the gardens whenever his schedule allowed. Nova always seemed to be there, reading or walking or simply sitting by the pond. She never mentioned her last name or her job at the court, and Ben didn't push for details. Their conversations ranged across many topics. Nova told him about Andorian history, how her people had once been warriors who fought constant battles until they learned to use their telepathic abilities to understand each other instead of fighting. Ben shared stories of human history, the wars, yes, but also the art and music and literature that came from people trying to understand their place in the universe. Humans seem to find beauty in struggle, Nova observed one afternoon. Your music is often about overcoming hardship. Your stories celebrate heroes who face impossible odds. Maybe that's because struggle is where we learn who we really are, Ben said. When everything is easy, there's no reason to grow or change. Nova's skin shifted to a deep purple that Ben had learned meant she was thinking seriously about something. The Andorian Council believes that a peaceful life is the highest goal. We have eliminated most sources of conflict from our society. Do you agree with them? Ben asked. Nova was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes I think we have eliminated too much. We are safe, comfortable, and very, very bored, Ben laughed. Humans would never tolerate being bored for long. We'd find something to explore or invent or argue about. Is that why you came to the stars? Nova asked. Because staying on Earth was boring? Partly, Ben admitted. But also because we wanted to meet people like you. We wanted to learn new things and see how other species solve the problems of existence. Nova's skin brightened to that warm golden color again. I think I understand why the Council finds humans both fascinating and frightening. After 2 weeks of these daily conversations, Ben realized he was looking forward to seeing Nova more than any of his official meetings. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and had a sense of humor that caught him off guard. When she laughed, her whole being seemed to light up from within. But more than that, Ben sensed a loneliness in her that matched his own. Despite being surrounded by thousands of beings at the court, Nova often seemed isolated. She mentioned having duties that kept her busy, but never talked about friends or family. The breakthrough in Ben's official mission came during his 3rd week at the court. He had suggested a cultural exchange program along with the trade agreements. Andorian artists could visit Earth, while human musicians and writers could study at the court. The idea excited several council members who had grown curious about human creativity. To celebrate the progress, the Andorians announced a special ceremony, the Festival of Memories, held once every few years to commemorate their people's journey from their original homeworld to their current empire. Ben was given a place of honor in the Great Hall, sitting with other diplomats and dignitaries. The hall itself was breathtaking, a vast domed space with walls that showed moving images of stars and galaxies. The ceiling was transparent, offering a view of real space beyond. As the ceremony began, performers took the stage to tell the story of the Andorian people through dance and song. The music was unlike anything Ben had ever heard. It seemed to resonate not just in his ears but in his chest and bones. The dancers moved like flowing water, their movements precise yet graceful. Then Princess Nova took the stage, and Ben's heart nearly stopped. He had never asked Nova her full name or her position at the court. Now he realized why her skin was a unique shifting rainbow, while other Andorians had solid colors. Why she lived at the court but seemed to have no specific job. Why she spoke about the council's decisions as if she had inside knowledge. Nova was Andorian royalty. As she began to dance, Ben forgot about everything else. The story she told through movement was heartbreaking and beautiful. A tale of a people forced to leave their dying world, searching the galaxy for a new home, facing dangers and setbacks, finally finding sanctuary and building something greater than what they had lost. But it was more than just the story. In Nova's performance, Ben could see all the conversations they had shared. When she danced the part about facing impossible odds, he thought of their discussion about human stubbornness. When she showed the loneliness of traveling between stars, he recognized the isolation he had sensed in her during their talks. She was dancing not just her people's history, but her own feelings. The weight of responsibility, the burden of decisions that affected millions of lives, the loneliness of leadership. When the dance ended, the hall erupted in applause. Nova bowed gracefully, but Ben caught a flash of exhaustion in her expression before she resumed her royal composure. After the ceremony, there was a reception where diplomats could mingle with Andorian officials. Ben wanted to approach Nova, but she was surrounded by nobles and dignitaries all wanting to speak with the princess. Every time Ben tried to get close, someone else would intercept him with questions about the trade negotiations. Hours passed. The crowd gradually thinned as beings returned to their quarters or departed for their home ships. Ben finally gave up trying to reach Nova and decided to walk in the gardens to clear his head. The gardens were peaceful at night, lit by soft, glowing plants and the light of distant stars. Ben found his usual bench by the pond and sat down heavily. He felt foolish for not realizing who Nova was, and worried that she might think he had been trying to manipulate her during their conversations. But more than that, he felt something he hadn't expected when he accepted this diplomatic mission. He was falling in love. It was crazy. He barely knew her. They were from different species, and she was literally a princess while he was just a diplomat from a planet most of the galaxy considered primitive. But their conversations had revealed a mind and heart that matched his own in ways he had never experienced with anyone. Ben stood up and walked to the edge of the pond, looking at his reflection in the glowing water. He thought about Nova's dance the next morning. Ben woke wondering if the previous night had been a dream. But when he checked his communication device, he found a message from Nova, asking him to meet her in the private royal gardens before his scheduled meetings began. The royal gardens were different from the public ones where they had first met. These were smaller, more intimate, with rare plants that seemed to respond to Nova's presence by glowing brighter when she walked past them. She was waiting by a fountain that played music as the water fell. "Ben," she said as he approached, "we need to talk about what happened last night." Her skin was a nervous shade of pale blue, and Ben felt his heart sink. "You've changed your mind." "No," Nova said quickly. "But I have been thinking about what accepting your proposal really means. There will be consequences that neither of us can avoid." Before Ben could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps made them both turn. Guide Zeph appeared on the garden path, moving faster than Ben had ever seen the four-armed alien move. "Princess," Zeph said, breathing heavily, "your father requests your immediate presence in the council chamber. Ambassador Torres, you are also summoned." Ben and Nova exchanged worried glances. Someone had discovered their midnight conversation. The walk to the council chamber felt like a march to execution. Ben's diplomatic training kicked in, helping him maintain a calm exterior while his mind raced through possible explanations and damage control strategies. The council chamber was an impressive circular room with a domed ceiling that showed real-time images of the Andorian Empire's many worlds. 12 high-backed chairs arranged in a circle held the council members, with the Emperor's throne elevated above the rest. Emperor Dex was an imposing figure, even by Andorian standards. His crystalline skin was a deep royal blue that never changed color, marking him as someone who had mastered complete emotional control. His eyes held the weight of centuries of rule, Daughter, the Emperor said as Nova bowed formally. Ambassador Torres. Ben bowed as well, trying to match Nova's respectful posture. It has come to our attention, the Emperor continued, that there was an exchange between you two in the gardens last night. Our security monitors detected elevated emotional readings from the princess's quarters afterward. We require an explanation. Ben opened his mouth to speak, but Nova stepped forward first. Father Ambassador Torres made a proposal of marriage. I accepted. The silence that followed was deafening. Several council members' skin shifted to shocked shades of white and silver. One elderly councillor actually stood up from his chair. Impossible, declared Councillor Vex, the oldest member of the council. The princess cannot marry outside our species. It has never been done. It cannot be done. With respect, Councillor, Ben said, finding his voice. Your own histories tell of Andorians adapting to impossible situations. You left your dying homeworld when everyone said it was impossible to find a new home. You built this empire when other species said you were too few and too weak. Emperor Dex raised a hand for silence. Ambassador Torres raises an interesting point about our history. However, marriage between our species presents challenges beyond mere tradition. What challenges, Father? Nova asked. Councillor Vex answered instead. Physical compatibility is uncertain. Cultural differences are vast. The lifespan issue alone makes this impractical. Humans live perhaps 90 years. Andorians live for millennia. You would watch him age and die while you remained young. It would be torture. Every marriage involves risk, Ben said. Human couples don't know how long they'll have together either. We could have 10 years or 50. What matters is making those years meaningful. Furthermore, another councillor added, there are political implications. Other species might see this marriage as Andoria showing favoritism to humanity. It could damage our carefully maintained neutrality. Emperor Dex studied Ben with ancient eyes. Tell me, Ambassador, why do you believe you are worthy of my daughter's hand? What can humanity offer that justifies disrupting centuries of tradition? Ben had prepared for many questions during his diplomatic training, but never this one. He thought about everything he had learned about Nova during their conversations, and everything she had told him about Andorian society. Your Majesty, Ben began, I can't offer Nova wealth or long life or political advantage, but I can offer her something I believe Andorian society has forgotten the value of: passion. The council members murmured among themselves. Emperor Dex's expression remained neutral. Explain, the Emperor said. In our conversations, Princess Nova has mentioned how peaceful and orderly Andorian society has become, but she's also mentioned that your people have become distant from each other. Your telepathic abilities mean you always know what others are thinking, so there are no surprises, no discoveries, no growth. Ben gestured toward Nova. Your daughter is one of the most intelligent, creative beings I've ever met, but she's lonely because everyone around her is predictable. Humans aren't telepathic. We surprise each other constantly. We have to work to understand each other, and that work makes our relationship stronger. You offer uncertainty as a gift? Councillor Vex asked skeptically. I offer the chance to feel something new, Ben replied. When did anyone in this room last feel truly surprised by another person? When did you last discover something about someone you thought you knew completely? Nova's skin had brightened to a warm gold during Ben's speech. He's right, Father. I can read the thoughts of everyone at court. I know what they're going to say before they say it. But Ben's mind works differently. He challenges my assumptions and makes me think about things in new ways. Emperor Dex was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. You present an interesting argument, Ambassador. But words are easy. Actions matter more. What kind of actions? Ben asked. A trial, the Emperor said. 3 challenges that will test whether humanity truly offers something valuable to our society, or whether this attraction between you and my daughter is merely novelty that will fade with time. Father, Nova began, but the Emperor held up a hand. The trials are not just for Ambassador Torres, the Emperor said. They are for both of you. If you truly believe this marriage would benefit both our peoples, you must prove it together. What are the challenges? Ben asked. Councillor Vex stood up. The first trial is survival. You must work together to overcome a physical challenge that requires both human determination and Andorian wisdom. Another councillor spoke. The second trial is diplomacy. You must resolve a real conflict between 2 species that has resisted solution for decades. The Emperor himself announced the third trial. The final challenge is understanding. You must find a way to bridge the gap between human emotion and Andorian logic, proving that your differences are strengths rather than weaknesses. And if we fail? Nova asked. Then the marriage proposal is withdrawn permanently, the Emperor said, and humanity's diplomatic status with our empire will be reconsidered. Ben felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Not only his own happiness was at stake, but potentially Earth's future relationship with one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. We accept, Ben said, looking at Nova. She nodded agreement, her skin glowing with determined silver. Very well, the Emperor said. You have 1 week to prepare. The trials begin at the next dawn cycle. As they left the council chamber, Nova walked beside Ben in tense silence. Finally, when they were alone in a corridor, she spoke. I'm sorry, she said. I should have known this would happen. My father has censors throughout the court. Privacy is an illusion for royalty. Are you having second thoughts? Ben asked. Nova stopped walking and turned to face him. Are you? You've just committed to challenges that could destroy your planet's relationship with my people. Ben considered this. The smart diplomatic thing would be to withdraw gracefully, apologize for any misunderstanding, and focus on completing the trade negotiations successfully. But he thought about Nova's laugh, the way her skin brightened when she was happy, the intelligence in her eyes when she asked questions about human nature. I'm not having second thoughts, he said, but I'm wondering how we're going to pass 3 trials designed by people who don't want us to succeed. Nova's skin shifted to a mischievous shade of green. Then it's fortunate that you're human and I'm Andorian. We're both too stubborn to give up easily. They spent the week preparing intensively. Nova taught Ben about Andorian meditation techniques that could help him stay calm under pressure. Ben showed Nova human problem-solving methods that relied on creative thinking, rather than logical analysis. The first trial took place in a simulation chamber that could recreate any environment. Ben and Nova found themselves on a replica of an ancient Andorian battlefield, complete with unstable terrain and energy storms that could disrupt technology. Your goal, announced Counselor Vex's voice over the chamber's communication system, is to reach the shelter on the far side of the field before the energy storm intensifies to lethal levels. You have 2 hours. The battlefield was a nightmare landscape of broken ground, deep chasms, and twisted metal from ancient war machines. Energy discharges crackled through the air randomly, making it impossible to predict safe paths. The logical approach would be to map the energy patterns and calculate the safest route, Nova said, her skin shifting to thoughtful blue. But we don't have time for a complete analysis, Ben replied. Sometimes you have to trust instinct and adapt as you go. They moved across the battlefield as a team, with Nova using her telepathic abilities to sense energy buildups before they became visible, while Ben relied on human intuition to spot unstable ground and hidden dangers. When Nova's logical approach would have led them into a trap, Ben's creative thinking found alternative routes. When Ben's impulsiveness would have gotten them caught in an energy discharge, Nova's careful analysis kept them safe. They reached the shelter with minutes to spare, both exhausted but triumphant. The second trial was more complex. They were brought before representatives of 2 alien species, the Zephirites and the Crystalline Collective, who had been in conflict for 50 years over mining rights to an asteroid field that both groups claimed. Every attempt at mediation has failed, explained the lead negotiator. The Zephirites base their claim on historical occupation. The Crystallines base theirs on biological need. They require specific minerals from those asteroids to survive. Ben and Nova spent hours listening to both sides, learning about the deep-seated mistrust and fundamental differences in how the 2 species viewed property and survival. The problem isn't legal, Nova observed during a break. Both sides have valid claims under different systems of law. And it's not really about the asteroids, Ben added. It's about respect and recognition. Both groups feel like their needs aren't being taken seriously. Their solution was unconventional. Instead of trying to decide who deserved the mining rights, they proposed a joint operation where both species would work together, with the Zephirites providing historical knowledge and operational expertise while the Crystallines contributed their unique ability to locate the most valuable mineral deposits. But they hate each other, one of the observers pointed out. They think they hate each other, Nova corrected. But neither group has actually worked closely with the other. Fear of the unknown often masquerades as hatred. The proposal worked. Representatives from both species agreed to a trial cooperation period, and preliminary reports suggested the joint operation would be more efficient than either group working alone. The third trial was the most personal. Ben and Nova were brought before the full council and asked to demonstrate how their union would benefit both their peoples. "This is what we've learned," Ben began. "Andorian society has achieved peace through predictability. Everyone knows what everyone else is thinking, so there are no surprises, no conflicts, but also no growth." Nova continued the thought. "Human society grows through conflict and resolution. They don't know what others are thinking, so they must work constantly to understand each other. This creates friction but also creativity and emotional depth. We propose," Ben said, "an exchange program where young Andorians can experience human unpredictability, while humans can learn Andorian meditation and emotional control techniques. But more than that," Nova added, "we propose that our marriage itself becomes a bridge. I can help humans understand the value of inner peace and careful thought. Ben can help Andorians rediscover the excitement of emotional discovery." Emperor Dex leaned forward in his throne. "And what of the lifespan issue? How do you propose to handle the pain of inevitable separation?" Nova's skin glowed with warm gold as she took Ben's hand. "Father, you taught me that every moment has value. Human lives are brief by our standards, but they burn brightly. Ben has shown me more new ways of thinking in 3 weeks than I discovered in the previous 3 decades. If we have 50 years together, we'll make them count for 1,000. And if we have 10 years, we'll make them count for 100, Ben added. "The length of time matters less than the depth of experience." The council deliberated for hours while Ben and Nova waited in an antechamber. Finally, they were summoned back to hear the verdict. Emperor Dex stood as they entered. "The council has reached a decision," he announced. "By a narrow majority, we find that your trials have been completed successfully." Ben felt his knees go weak with relief. But the Emperor wasn't finished. "However," the Emperor continued, "this marriage cannot proceed as a simple personal matter. If you truly believe it will benefit both our peoples, then it must be conducted as a formal alliance between our species." "What does that mean?" Nova asked.